I was fixed up with Esther, and it's been such a lovely little love affair. I was fixed up with Esther about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yes.
Because she needed brides and to come to our Shabbat dinners, our monthly Shabbat dinners, and friendly visits. And we spent really lovely time together, going out for lunch. We've had Esther at our home for different holiday dinners. And how many years ago? 3 or 4 years ago, you moved up to Prescott.
About 5 years.
About 5 years now. Boy, time flies. I have the honor and privilege of being at Esther's 90th birthday party, and just this past May at being her 95th birthday party. I've been speaking about the Holocaust for many years at schools, at community colleges, did a lot of speaking up at Yavapai Community College, all over Arizona. And then one day, and I don't remember which was the first one, but a Chabad rabbi somewhere heard about Esther. And in the past 2 or 3 years, Esther has been flying nationally and internationally. She's gone to Canada to visit different Chabads and to speak about her experiences in the Holocaust. She is a phenomenal joy. Every person that she meets is her friend. She knows no strangers, and she has quite the story. And so, Esther, if you want to begin and let us know about your childhood, where you were from, and what happened during the war.
Okay, so as you all know, my name is Esther. I grew up in the Carpathian Mountains, which when my mom was born in the same town, it was Hungary. When I was born, it was Czechoslovakia. And then in 1938, the Hungarians came back. Then in 1942, the Nazis took over my hometown. And that was the end of the Jewish population. They were taken right away to the ghetto in 2 years, but before they took us into the ghetto, we suffered incredibly. They beat us up on the street. You see, you had to wear a yellow Star of David. Yeah.
This is her original star.
Yeah. And whoever wanted beat us up, my father, who was a rabbi, had a long beard. They were pulling on his beard until blood was coming out. He had to go home, cut it off, which was very traumatic for a rabbi. And so it went on like that. But before the Nazis came, I had a wonderful childhood, climbing the Carpathian Mountains, playing with my friends, Christian friends, Jewish friends. But when the Nazis came in, my Christian friends called me a dirty Jew right away. And so I went into the school next day, which I had to wear the yellow Star of David. When the teacher saw the Star of David, threw me out, saying, "You're a dirty Jew. You're not allowed to have a higher education." So I was crying because actually I liked school. I liked to learn about history, and I really liked it. So it was a terrible thing for me. And this was going on for 2 years. being beaten up terribly. And so after 2 years, the Nazis decided to make a ghetto out of a 4-street square. I don't know. They made a whole street. Yeah. And put us in the ghetto. My hometown, and there was 70. And so before they took us to the ghetto, they told us to take a suitcase and all our clothes and clothes and took us into the main synagogue in my hometown. And when we got there, they took all the doors open. The synagogue became like a snowstorm. It was, I still have nightmares from that. And then they took us into a ghetto. We were there for 6 weeks, being beaten mercilessly. No, hardly any food or water. It just so happens that we were taken into a house which was right across from my house. And I was watching how our neighbors took our belongings, our cattle, chickens, and geese. And it was very, very traumatic to see that. But the neighbor from the left called out my father's name in the middle of the night and threw a piece of bread over because he knew we were starving. But if he would have been caught, he would have been shot on the spot. But he risked his life. And so there are good people and not so good. And we were in the ghetto for 6 weeks when the Nazis decided to take us on a train, actually a cattle car. They pushed us in like 500 people in one car. There was room, only standing room. If somebody died on the road, we had to hold them up because.
Tell us how old you were.
Yes. And on my 16th birthday, May 28th, 1944, is when I got off the train to Auschwitz. I was holding hands with my mom because she was crying that she hid from the Nazis like an egg or two a week so she could make me a 16th birthday cake. But it never happened. We got out of Auschwitz on my birthday. They took my father right to the right. I was still holding strongly hands with my mom when a Nazi came, tore our hands apart by force, and took my mom to the right and took me into the barrack. I was there for 3.5 months in Auschwitz, tortured mercilessly, beaten up every day. We had to kneel on rocks until they were counting the people every day, every morning, every night, until we were counted and everybody was found. We had to kneel on the rocks until blood was coming out. And this went on for 3.5 months. We had to stay in line, 5 women in a row to be counted. I was standing with 4 sisters from my hometown. The youngest was my best friend. And one day, as we're standing in line, Dr. Mengele, the angel of death, they called him, stood in front of my line. He had this horrible silver cane that whomever he wanted to take out, whether to the gas chamber or for experiment, he just pointed that horrible cane at them and pulled them out from the light. One day, he's standing in front of my line, and it looked to me like he's pointing this horrible cane at me. So I step out of the line, he takes that horrible cane, pushes it into my belly button so bad that up till today I have nightmares from that, and my belly button hurts terribly when I wake up even. And he pushes me back and takes out my best friend and takes her away. When we got back into the barrack, this mean couple calls out, "Is there anyone that has family that was taken away?" And the 3 remaining sisters say, "Yes, our little sister was taken away." And this mean couple points to the gas chambers and says, "You see the chimney smoking? That's where your sister is." Up till today, I have guilt feelings because I thought I was supposed to be there. But I guess God had another purpose for me. Yes. Many times, I was so tortured that I went to the barbed wire. I just wanted to touch it. But in front of me came my parents' faces, and I could not touch it. What if they're alive and I'm not? I feel very strongly God put them there. Anyways, as we were tortured mercilessly for 3.5 months, the Nazis decided to take women to labor camps. You see, I had no family anymore, but I befriended a very nice woman. Her name was Helen, and we became like sisters. When the Nazis decided to take women to labor camp, the barracks had no door, but they put an incredibly heavy barrier towards the door, left a little opening. They looked at us, and whomever they felt they can go to work, push them in, and whom not, push them away, later finding out straight to the gas chambers. They pushed into the barrack my so-called sister, but they pushed me away. I was standing in front of the barrack and crying. Now I lost my so-called sister too. As I was standing there and crying, all of a sudden this unbelievably, incredibly heavy barrier fell over. The Nazis, of course, disappeared, and I snuck into the barrack. And that's why I don't have a tattoo. I wasn't supposed to be here, but God had other plans for me.
You want to tell us about your liberation?
Yes. And so we went to a labor camp. We were there for 9.5 months. We had a little better food, and we had our own bunk bed, thank God. And so it was a little bit better than Auschwitz. But we still had to stay in line for our food and for they still had to count us every morning and every night. One day, as I'm standing in line for my food, all of a sudden a woman comes in front of me, and I see her bowl is already dirty. So I tell her, Ilonka, I didn't have my food yet, and I see your bowl is dirty. And she says, yes, but I am still very hungry. And we're arguing back and forth in Hungarian, which of course the Nazis didn't understand. And as we're arguing, one of the Nazis came, beat me up mercilessly, so bad that I couldn't get up. I had to crawl back to the barrack and I lay down. And we had a good couple there. And when she saw I can't get up in the morning, she went to work for me. Because if she wouldn't have, the Nazis would have come, look for me, take me back to Auschwitz. But she saved my life. For days and days she went to work for me. And so that's how I was saved. After 9.5 months in the labor camp, they decided to take us what they called a death march, because many of us died on the road. And we were walking and walking for days and days until we wound up in another labor camp. They let us in, and that's where I found my so-called sister again. I was very happy, but the Nazis locked us in for 2 weeks, no food, no water, and disappeared after 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and the American soldier came, shut open the gate, and said, "You are free." We did not understand the word. We huddled together, terrified, because there was uniforms again. We did not understand a word English until they found us a Jewish soldier telling us in Jewish, "You are free, and go into town and take whatever you like." I didn't want anything. I thought I'm going home, find my parents, everything. But I picked up a big, big jar of honey. I licked it up with my fingers. By the time I got back to the camp, I was deadly ill. And the soldiers took me into the infirmary. They brought me back to health. I was there for 6 weeks, and they called me the Honey Girl because I got sick from the honey. Years and years later, when my great-granddaughter was 2 years old, today she's 19, my daughter took her in Prescott to a 4th of July celebration. And that little 2-year-old girl had tears in her eyes. She didn't know what was happening, but she was very emotional from the songs, from the flags, everything. My daughter comes home and tells me about it. And I says to her, did I ever tell you about my first 4th of July? You see, the soldiers liberated us April 14, 1945, but they were there until September. And they celebrated 3rd of July. I had no idea what they were celebrating, but I was so emotional from the flags, from the singing, everything. I had tears in my eyes. So when my daughter comes home and tells me about my little great-granddaughter, I says to her my story, and I envied if I would ever meet an American soldier that liberated my camp, how happy I would be. She got on the internet. She did not rest until she found me one. Yeah. Yeah, that's I call him my American hero. And she couldn't find him right away. It took her like 3 months. When she sent a letter to the 84th Division. And they found Max Lever was his name. Of course, she was happy to hear there is a Holocaust survivor in Phoenix. He got into his car. He was 89 years old by then. He got into his car from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and drove all over and came to Phoenix to meet me. I was very, very happy to see him. My whole family gathered together, and it was wonderful. And we became best of friends. He came to Phoenix. I used to go to Albuquerque. And one day, and whenever I went to Albuquerque, he invited his friends. And we were sitting there and socializing. And one day he looks at me and he says, Esther, do you like honey? I says, not anymore. And he says, I know why. You're the honey girl. And it was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
Do you want to tell us about Joe?
So, okay. So anyways, after like 6 months in that camp, they decided that by birth, I'm Czechoslovakian. And the Czech people decided to take their Jews home. So they put me on a ship to Prague. From Prague, I took a train to Budapest, to capital of Hungary. And as I get off the train, the only cousin that survived of a family of 35 people. Only I and this cousin survived. And he was liberated first. So he came to Budapest to a train station to see who's coming home. And I showed up. He was very happy to see me. But he says, Esther, no use for you to go home. Nobody survived. The Russians even took over your house, so you know where to go. But I have a very good friend who's taking orphans between ages of 12 and 18 towards Palestine. And he says, I'll introduce you to my friend, and we have an uncle in Palestine, and he'll help you find them, and he'll take care of you. I said, okay. He takes me to his friend, he introduces me, and at that time it was the tradition asking, where are you from? Where are you from? And when he asked me where I'm from, I says, well, it's a small town in Carpathian Mountains. He says, from there, and when I tell him the name of my town, he says, oh, I had a great uncle there. I says, who was your great uncle? He says, the Sepinker Rabbi. I was in awe of him right away. My father was a rabbi too, but he used to take me every year to be blessed by the Sepinker Rabbi. And so I think I fell in love with him right then and there. When we started walking, he was 23 years old. He took 60 orphans upon himself to take towards Palestine. Between ages of 12 and 18.
How old were you?
I was 17. While we were walking, we fell in love. And we were walking, but in the meantime, he was leaving the orphans all over with or kibbutzim organizations to take care of them. But he took me all the way to Palestine. The joke in the family is that he couldn't find a place for me, so he had to take me all the way to Palestine. Anyways, we realized we were walking a lot and we got a train and we wound up in a displaced persons camp in Germany, where the United Nations and the American soldiers took care of us. And we realized it's going to take a long, long time to get to Palestine. We decided to get married in that kibbutz. And this is my wedding picture. The soldiers gave us these jackets, and they gave me a blanket to sew a skirt because we were wearing jeans, you know. A bride shouldn't wear a jean. So they gave us this blanket. The girls in the kibbutz told me that skirt, and the boys in the organization stole the ration of cigarettes for a month to be able to buy me a piece of white material. A bride should wear something white. And this is my wedding picture. Anyways, we were married maybe like 3 months when a woman next door to us got a bicycle. And I asked her to loan it to me. I wanted to show off my new husband that I know how to ride a bicycle. As I get on the bicycle, I holler, Joe, Joe, come out. Joe comes out from where we were staying, and all of a sudden I fell down and I broke my knees. And they took me to the infirmary and I threw up. And the nurses who spoke only German says in German, are you pregnant? I didn't understand a word, but they took me up to the 3rd floor where they had a Hungarian doctor. And it asked me in Hungarian, you're pregnant? I didn't understand. I says, why? He looks at my finger. The United Nations gave us a thin wedding band. And he says, you're married, right? I says, yes, so? He says, so that's why you're pregnant. What do you think you were doing? I says, I thought I was having fun. Yeah. And so they explained to me, but the kibbutz, the organization, decided they didn't want the baby to be born in Germany. So they did their best to take me on a ship to France. And from France, we were there a long time. So they finally decided to put us on a ship to go towards Palestine. We were traveling for days and days as this old ship was breaking down, had to be fixed. But finally, we wound up in the port of Haifa. We already saw the light of Haifa. We were already singing the Hatikva, and we were so happy. But then the British caught us, took us off by force, and put us into another ship. They threw tear gas in our ship to take us off and put us on another ship, took us to Cyprus. And we were there for 6 months. We didn't have much better food than in Germany, in Auschwitz, but a little better food. We still had to stay in line, everything. But after like 6 months, they decided to take 50 Jews at a time to Palestine. Being I wasn't 18 yet and pregnant, they decided I was among the first 50 people to be taken to Palestine. And finally, I got to my promised land. We were very, very happy. 2 weeks later, my daughter Rachel was born. And we were very happy. We were very poor, but who needed anything? I was just grateful that I'm in my homeland. I wasn't afraid of uniforms. When I saw a gun, I wasn't afraid anymore. And it was a wonderful, wonderful life. And then in 1948, when the Israeli war broke out, my husband and three of his brothers went into the army right away. And one of his brothers died. My father-in-law, who was already in Toledo, Ohio, sent us, sent us sad letters. How sad it is to lose a child, which now I understand. I lost two children in the last 2 years. Thank you. So now I understand how he felt. And so it went on. And finally, after a few years in Israel, my husband decided to listen to his father. And so we came out to the United States. But we couldn't come straight to the United States. We had to stay in France for 6 months. There we got the Canadian visa, and we came to Canada on the border of Canada and the United States. So my father-in-law just had to cross the tunnel or the bridge, and he was in Canada, Windsor, Ontario. And so this went on for 6 years until we finally got the American visa. You see, when I was in the labor camp, working in the ammunition factory, we worked like 12 hours a day, every 2 weeks, 24 hours. And so I was soldering handles to the mines. But after working so many hours, I soldered my fingers to the mines. So I have no more fingerprints. But the United States was nice enough to give me an American visa. I could have been a criminal, but they decided to give me the visa. And we live very happy.
Esther, do you want to tell us how speaking and doing what you do still at 95, traveling, what that does for you today?
It does for me a lot. Every time I speak, I have less and less nightmares. So it helps me too. And so it's just something that I like to do. It makes me feel very, very good, especially when I see how people care. It warms my heart. Especially when I speak all over, wherever they ask me. Churches, synagogues, high schools, libraries. And when the high school students listen to me, they send me such beautiful thank you notes, telling me, Mrs. Basch will make sure this will never happen again. And I believe them. And so
Esther and her husband had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. And within the last 2 years, Esther has lost a daughter and a son.
yes,
And still gets up every day with her smiling face and her shining voice,
Thank you.
and has something wonderful to offer.
Yes.
We can have questions.
Wonderful.
I have two questions.
Can you hear him?
Your story sounds very familiar to me because my mother's family came from an area that you seem to have described.
His mother's family is from an
They
area
came,
where
my
he
mother's
lived.
family came from a little community called Bilkey.
Bilkey, his mother's family.
Bilke, yes, yes.
Across from this area.
I
His
know,
mother's family.
I know Bilke, not far from us.
Their family were also speaking of Hasidim.
His family were Hasidic.
Yeah.
One of my elders survived Auschwitz and survived because his father spoke to the rabbi and the rabbi gave him a blessing.
Yeah.
He credits that.
We were Hasidic too. My father was an Orthodox rabbi. And
So
so,
he didn't come from that area.
and,
No.
yeah.
Were you from, you weren't from Bilkey?
No.
No.
The second question I'd like to ask.
I was what they call Nachtförsch.
The second question I have was, would you remember the last name of Helen?
Do you know Helen's last name?
Helen? No, but she was from Romania. Yeah, yeah.
We knew somebody from Hungary that was named Helen, that was.
Thank you, first of all, for sharing that beautiful, beautiful, sad story. Gracias, Mayo.
Did you hear her?
Gracias, Mayo.
Beszélek. Persze. Az anyanyelvem magyar. Igen.
Place called Padbany.
Do you know a place called Padbany?
Padbany.
Padbany? Padbany?
Padbany.
Padbany?
Where is it close?
Because my mother was born and she was Czech, she was Hungarian, she was Czech, she was Hungarian.
Yes, same my town.
They said they did a house and on Friday they cleaned the house by putting new dirt on the floor.
They cleaned the house by putting new dirt on the floor.
Yes, yes, I remember. Risha, do you remember that? She is also from Komyar, not far from I think you were at the Solush ghetto. Yeah, she was in the same ghetto that I was. Yeah.
Did you know where Urshava is?
Urshava?
Oh, yeah, yes.
It's my husband's father is from there.
Her husband's father's from Urshava.
Nice, nice. Yes. And
I don't know about you, but I find her memory remarkable. Remarkable. Remarkable.
I was just going to ask you the name of the kibbutz in Palestine.
Remember the name of the
The name of the
kibbutz?
kibbutz in Palestine.
No, in Palestine, I was not in a kibbutz, only in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't remember the name of it?
Well, I know a lot of kibbutzim because I visited. Yeah. And my husband, who was in the army, he visited a lot of kibbutzim. Yes.
Do you remember the organization? She was no.
If you knew the organization.
Oh, that my husband was in?
Yeah.
In the Haganah. He was in the Yes, yes. He was a very very strong Zionist all his life.
I have an aunt they came to Palestine and the British put her on a ship and sent them to Mauritius off the coast of Africa. You were lucky that you just went to Cyprus. You know, because the British were anti-Semitic at that time.
Yes, they were.
It's still out. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
You need more water. Do you want more water?
I'm going to take you into the present. That's okay. What we're seeing right now in America was very similar to what I read was happening in Germany. It's terrible.
What's happening today?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on what to do? Because we have to do something.
I wish I would have a suggestion. You see, I feel very strongly it's in God's hands. You see, when Steven Spielberg made that movie Schindler's List, he took all the proceeds from that movie and sent people from Hollywood to Holocaust survivors who wants to make a tape of their life. And my husband and I made a tape. When this woman from Hollywood finished my story, she says, Esther, how do you feel about the Germans today? I says, well, I cannot forget the horror they put me through, but I can forgive. Because if I don't forgive, if I hold a grudge, I only hurt myself. And this woman from Hollywood hugged me, telling me I was the first Holocaust survivor to answer her question the way I did. But I believe very strongly, you see, I don't even have a picture of my parents. Nothing. But what they taught me to be good. If you cannot do anything good, don't do anything bad. Love all people, regardless of race or religion. Love everybody. Love God, which I love very much. And think positive, and you'll have a happy life. And that's how I live. Loving God, Jesus. Thank you.
Someone had asked about if there's a book written or anything on Esther's story.
Laura, do you want to give any information as to what's going on with the documentary? Thank you. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but
You can introduce yourself.
yes.
Hi, I'm Laura. One of my sorry, I always get choked up. But yeah, so we are Esther is the documentary, and if anyone's interested, it's called The Honey Girl. And so you can find our website, and there's information. Also, we keep her current events updated, and
She's doing a lot of.
she raised close to $100,000 for the budget of $109,000. We're almost there to get this documentary done. It's all.
Yeah. Thank you.
So again, if there's any last questions,
Yeah.
the keynote.
This could be mentioned
Yes. You're living in Prescott
Yeah.
with family.
With my daughter.
Yes. Yes.
One more question in the back.
She's coming. Rabbi's coming. Robert Starr?
Yeah, I know Robert, yes, yes.
He's documented what has he
Did
documented?
he make a mask of your?
No.
It's a mask? No. But you have a painting that is there
Who did the painting of your face?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
So not Robert.
Yeah.
No.
It's at the Platkin Museum, Jewish Museum, yes.
All right, so again, I wanted to thank Esther for, like I mentioned, she's been traveling, and she is actually today she is going back home with
She's been
a
in
special
Spokane,
friend who's going to be driving her back
everywhere.
to So again, thank you so much for being here and being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much.